I want to go ahead and bring you a video from another 3-star dungeon we did, the Sinister Smile dungeon. So real quick, this mechanic right here, do not kill the small snakes before you kill the big snakes. You need to single target, not AoE, single target, kill the big snakes first. I believe this was one of the runs before we knew that. But what happens is you see those forever buffs and debuffs above their head. Yeah, there it is right there. Allows enemies revival upon death. The green, the red one does not allow enemies revival. So you have to kill the red ones. So as you kill the red ones, it's going to stack the do not revive on everybody, unfortunately. But what happens after that, if you still have the lesser snakes alive, who have less health, by the way, so you might get unlucky with like a bad multi or a counter. But see right there, that was a mistake. You're supposed to kill the bigger snakes first in this phase 1. What that's going to do for you, if you single target kill all 3 of the green snakes after you've killed the ones with the red debuff, rather, you're going to go ahead and basically get rid of the cannot be revived debuff that goes past this battle for up to 3 characters, depending on how successful you are. So it's random, whichever one it happens on. On this one, obviously, I don't think we did it properly, as you can see here. But just be aware of that, and be aware that the 2 snakes in the middle, or the 2 bigger snakes, they got more HP than the little snakes, so you got to be really careful. If you just come in here with like extremely hard hitters, like a Ruby right there, just go ahead and ult the big snakes. Hit the big snakes as hard as you can. If you're lucky, you can get a mark like that. And, you know, just wreck them all. But in this case, you're going to see, as soon as we're done with this, we're going to get a eternal stacking debuff for cannot be revived. And obviously we got 2 Roos here, so that's a big bummer. And then the other bad thing that happens, since it's an eternal debuff, most of you that play Rue know by now that one of her passives is, when she gets fully built up, she removes 2 debuffs from the team every round, every time her turn. I forget if it's when it comes up or when it's over, but one of those. So basically, since this is a debuff that never expires, her passive always tries to get rid of it. So in this case, this is a poison dungeon. So if we have that debuff, and it's the first debuff, and then we have the poison debuff after it, like, as you can see kind of here, Rue's passive is just going to go ahead and keep trying to dispel the eternal debuff that can't be dispelled. It's not even going to think about the poison, unless you've done the first wave here right. So it kind of sucks, actually. I kind of wish they hadn't done that, but hey, it's something to think about from now on. So even if you bring Rue, you're not going to automatically just get rid of all your debuffs if there's one of those eternal debuffs that are up, as happen oftentimes in a lot of the dungeons that we go into right now for the Advent and the event dungeons. So be aware of that. This was actually our first time figuring that out. In fact, I think this is before we figured it out. So anyways, I'm sorry, I should be talking about the second wave here. So this guy, he's basically your typical orc boss that's in like every RPG that just farts on people. When he farts on you, he's going to go ahead and do poison. It can be evaded, obviously, the debuff. His regular attacks, you know, they're not doing much, but you see that right there. When you see him doing that, that means he's going to do a 5 attack that's going to hit up to 3 people, depending on where he aims it. So be careful of your health at that point. Obviously, healing's a little bit crazy. We had the Ruse do their actives to get rid of the poisons there. And then we got Croy putting the shield out, because we know what's coming, because we've done this once or twice before. There goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Almost got that Ruby there. If he'd a crit, you know, or maybe if Ruby has poison and we're unlucky and her regen passives go off, hey, she's dead. So be extra careful there, whatever's gonna happen. And then whenever you see him doing his other movement thing right there, that means that he's about to do the big fart cloud with the poison. So just be aware, you know, healing's a little bit hard in this dungeon just because of that poison debuff and revive mechanics, obviously. Hopefully, when you do phase 1 right, you're gonna get, depending on how many revivers you bring, but you definitely want your DPS to be back up. If you got a tank, hopefully they're gonna get the or not get the revive debuff rather. And then once you understand this guy, you know, it's pretty much just a tank and spank. You know, try to kill him before he gets that off a couple times. Depending on how strong your characters are, you know, might not even matter to you. Sheik's gonna go ahead and finish him off here. Sheik playing the Ruby. And then you're gonna get the phase 3. So phase 3 is a different animal. The problem with phase 3, this guy, in Sinister Smile. I'll talk about what happens when he gets to Half-Life Aether. Right off the bat, you're gonna see here, he's gonna wreck Ruby, because he just starts with a really hard AoE. Like, wham, dead. So if Ruby, because we can't revive her obviously, but if Ruby didn't have the revive debuff, if he did phase 1 right, hey, Rue takes her turn, gets her right back up, let's go to business. Because Ruby, unlike most people, the reason that we brought Ruby is because eventually this guy starts stacking some buffs, but Ruby pretty much always hits him no matter what. But basically, he has some AoEs, he has one single target. Actually, I guess that's a second single target there. Or maybe that's the one I'm thinking of. Either way, he has a lot of AoE, a lot of 3 targets that you got to be careful of. So tanking him's a little bit, you know, because he's still going to have so much AoE that tanking almost doesn't matter to a point. It's still good to tank him, obviously. There's his 3 target right there, and he's putting poison on with that as well, so poison's another thing you have to manage. So I'll skip ahead. So the thing with this guy, once he gets to half, I believe, half health, he's gonna stack these buffs on himself, and the buffs are basically his evade goes up. It doesn't say the percentage, but I swear to God, it feels like 80%. So accuracy is actually really important in this dungeon, as weird as that is to say, because I know most of us sleep on accuracy. He does like 1 or 2 other things, I forget. I want to say he does either an attack buff or a crit buff. And then this guy, I've read his kit too. If you're poisoned and he hits you, it's a 100% crit strike chance. He obviously has passives that can poison. And he's doing some AoE damage there. I guess once we get to where he's at half, then we can see. But just so you guys know our thinking on this, obviously we want to tank. This was one of our first times doing this. We wanted a Ruby to get rid of debuffs, and then obviously DPS. And we wanted the Ruse, hopefully for some revives and buff removal. And then I'm over there on the left with Ellie. I got to be really careful with Ellie because she's, once again, the battery. So she can heal every time she defends, 40% for herself, 20% for the team. But you gotta be real careful with that with poison, so it's kind of nuts here. And then also with her, you know, she's got her penetration, she's stacking a lot of debuffs, so it's getting pretty good. This guy's almost at half right now, so we're gonna go ahead and see. As you can see, he's critting everyone that's poisoned. Luckily, it's not like a 200% damage amp, at least. Unless those two happen to be really mitigated, because Croy and Crazy are actually 2 of the most beefy accounts in our guild right now. Crazy's technically not our guild, but beefy accounts I know on the server. So let's see the buffs he puts up, because he's got his turn here. So there goes evasion. Oh yeah, so he starts doing this targeting thing. It's like weakening or exposure. I forget exactly what it's called. But basically, try to remove it like the Rue did, because it's going to do a pretty nasty damage amp. Let's see here. Oh yeah, so his other thing is counter attack is guaranteed if he's hit. But he's evading so much. You see how much he's evading here? He's evading so much that, you know, he doesn't get the counter every time just because we're not hitting him. So bringing a guy with like either an accuracy buff or a guy that's just accurate in general, maybe you got some runes. Really good here. Some dots obviously are going to do work even if you miss. The dot has a chance to go off. And yeah, you see the trouble we're having right here because we're trying to dispel that evasion buff and it's 3 turns. And once we get to the end of 3 turns, well, guess what? He's just like, oh, it's almost expired. Better recast it. And there it is. So everything goes back up. His 100% counterattack when he's hit. I want to say the 3rd buff is damage amp. I forget if I actually look at it here. So obviously the fight's going to keep going on. And just to give you guys the trepidation that we felt, you know, we got him pretty low. Normally this wouldn't be a problem, but he's just continuing to stack that poison. making the healing rather tenacious, continuing to evade us. It gets pretty ridiculous. So funny thing was, Croy ended up being the most effective just because every time he's getting hit, he's dotting, for the most part, and then he's also managing to hit a lot as well. He has a lot of counter strike because obviously on your tank you want counter strike because their one is usually a taunt. So you want that taunt and those debuffs to go out as much as possible. Got lucky there, but as you saw, I hit him, so he's 100% counter strike. I got poison on me, so I can't just defend. So I'm pretty much forced to hit the boss and possibly provoke that counter. Luckily, we got the ruse here. Go ahead and get that off. And it's pretty much just going to keep going until we get him here, so... But yeah, these are the mechanics for the fight. So obviously you do your phase 1 right. It's a lot easier the rest of the fight. Go ahead and bring a Dispeller to keep the poisons and the other debuffs down. If you got immune to status abnormality, like Rue does here, on any of your characters, that goes a long ways for you too, getting some debuffs. If you got someone that can decrease evasion or just get rid of debuffs in general, assuming you can hit this guy, they got some accuracy, that'll do some work for you. And as you can see, the dots keep chunking here. You put weakness revealed on Rue down here. Jirdosh is playing it from my guild. And this fight, if you know what's coming, obviously, you can just come in here and wreck it, or if you have some really OP characters. But if you're just doing this for the first time, that's who the video's aimed for. If there's some mechanics you don't understand, go ahead, take them out with the duster there. And there you go, so... Got him on a counter kill, by the way. So anyways, guys, that's your Sinister Smile 3-star dungeon guide here. Hopefully that helps you out a little bit. And once again, I stream this game nearly every weekday, Pacific Standard Time afternoons. So good luck on your farm. Good luck with everything related to the game right now. So I'm going to go ahead and be out. So I'm Showtime Doctor. I'll catch you later.